The next movie on our list is a movie that is one of our personal favorites. It's not just one of our favorite movies or one of our favorite scary movies from the 70s. It's actually one of our scary movies in general. It is a little movie called Phantasm. It was directed by Don Coscarelli, and it came out in 1979. It actually had a lower budget of $300,000, and it actually went out to gross about $12 million, and that was in 1979. But yes, Phantasm is one of those movies that, for us, it's just a cult classic, and I know we all love it.
Yeah, it's got a big cult following. Dude, I can't explain why I love this movie so much, because it's such a weird, out there movie as far as the plot. It's one of those movies where it's really hard to describe the plot to other people and say, well, this guy, Angus Scrimm is the actor's name, plays the tall man. And to say, oh, yeah, there's this character called the Tall Man who kind of comes into this town. This kid discovers him, and he's doing weird things. And then, oh, yeah, they're these, like, little Jawa-type creatures who are, like, aliens from another planet. And Angus Scrimm clearly is. The Tall Man is clearly from another planet, or another dimension, even.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's going on, and then all of a sudden he has this ball that floats. Floating balls that kill people with spikes and everything. And it's one of the most fun, interesting, weird, original horror movies, horror/sci-fi, I would say.
Yeah.
Or fantasy, however you want to look at it, but it's definitely horror. And it's campy and it's fun, and I can't say enough good things about this series because Part 2, Phantasm Part 2, like we watched it at the Jungle, which is his parents' old home, where we had an outside projector and it was in this cool location, so it was really creepy. But we watched the entire series, Part 1, 2, 3, and 4, all in the jungle.
Yeah.
And Part 2 is awesome because it picks up exactly where Part 1 takes left off, which is very similar to the Halloween 2 series. Mm-hmm. So for those two movies. But it's so fun, man. I don't know how to describe it to other people, where I just basically have when I recommend it to people, I just say, I'm not going to tell you about it, just watch it, because it's one of those campy, culty, really fun movies to watch that is super funny. It has funny moments, a lot of funny moments. Don Coscarelli, or however you say his name, is famous for, he directed Bubba Hotep with Bruce Campbell, and so he's directed some really fun movies too. But so it's another one where it's really fun. It's not really a true horror movie to where you're really deathly afraid of things in it. It's more of like a slapstick, kind of funny, over-the-top, weird horror movie that it deals with interdimensional aliens, I guess, and it's mostly the characters that are really funny in the movie.
I think one of the things about this movie that people love is because it had such a low budget. For the time, I mean, $300,000 is a lot of money for making for a movie. The movie kind of jumps around, like really offbeat sometimes. Yeah. And I think
the editing was weird.
The editing is really weird and offbeat, and I think people kind of like that because it flows so off, and it's just kind of like, wait, what's going on? Why are we here now?
Right.
But it totally fits with this movie because you kind of like that style, because the movie in itself, I think, knows what it is and how like cheap it is and all that stuff. And I think the characters are what makes the movie. You
get invested with the characters, which is
like
fun.
Reggie's one of our favorite characters of all time, and so like he's like the Billy Badass, and so there's the kid and the tall man. The tall man in himself, he has the boy, and then even the floating ball in itself is a character, because it's just kind of. It's just this weird thing. It's like, what? And then you see this floating ball going around, and then you see it floating around, and then towards the middle of the movie, it finally gets someone, and it drills into someone's head, and then blood just starts squirting out the back, and you're like, what? It's just so random, but it's so awesome. And
which is funny, too, because, spoiler alert, I believe it's one of the bad guys.
Oh, yeah. You're right. It's one of the bad guys, so... it's really campy, it's really fun, it's really offbeat and kind of weird. Editing's all over the place and choppy.
It requires a second viewing, if not a third viewing.
Yes.
Because I've watched it at least 3 to 4 times, and I still don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And that is something that I love, because it's not it's not a Donnie Darko, like something super deep with time travel and things like that, where you're going, oh, I gotta watch it again because that's so deep and so interesting and moving and whatever, whatever it is, something like that, where it requires repeat viewing to catch things you didn't get the first time, or like Fight Club when that first came out. I want to watch it again and say, okay, where's Edward Norton's character turning into Tyler Durden? Yeah. Where's Tyler Durden begin? Where's he?
Spoiler alert!
Yeah, spoiler alert! Yeah, from like whatever 20 years ago. But yeah, it's one of those interesting movies where it's super campy, it's super funny, but it actually holds up really well. And in fact, I just looked on Amazon about a week or two ago, looking at Phantasm because I was thinking about it, and I think they're releasing a new Blu-ray package.
Yeah.
For northern United States, that's going to be like the entire series on Blu-ray with a bunch of behind the scenes and stuff like that. So I'm actually really tempted to pre-order it though, because I'm so excited. It may even be, by the time this podcast comes out, it may even be out yet. I'm not sure, but dude, it's just one of those funny movies, and it's really well done. It's really, really fun.
So Phantasm, definitely one to check out for Halloween. It's fun, it's campy. I give it a shot. It's even in the first 15 minutes.
It's not for everyone.
It's not for everyone. I'll tell you this: in the first 15 minutes, it's really jumps around all over the place, and the editing's kind of weird. But give it a shot, give it a chance, and even at the first time you don't like it, try again. This is a movie I wouldn't recommend seeing on AMC where commercials kind of interrupt, because it's already edited kind of offbeat, that if a commercial jumps in there, it's going to really throw you off. So kind of try to get the DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, just kind of try to see it in one sitting.
Yeah, exactly. And also be aware that the first 4 minutes of the film is a love scene in a cemetery.
Yes.
Which is really awkward. There's nudity, so beware of that. A lot of these horror movies have nudity in them, which is annoying, but it's funny the way they transition, though.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden the tall man's there, you don't know who he is, why this couple's in the graveyard. It's really funny the way it's done, because it's actually genuinely spooky and creepy, and you get this creepy feeling, but it makes you laugh at the same time.
Yeah.
So why I think I like it, because it's reminiscent of an Evil Dead, but it's in this weird interdimensional system. It's weird. And
to end on a super positive note about this movie, the theme is just amazing. It's one of the best horror movie themes out
awesome.
there. So Phantasm, definitely check it out. So the next movie on our list is Dawn of the Dead, directed by George A. Romero, the innovator of the zombie genre. It was released in 1978, and it is the sequel to Night of the Living Dead. It actually came out 10 years after Night of the Living Dead, but in the movie world, it's taking place about a few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks after the events that happened in Night of the Living Dead. So Dawn of the Dead follows 4 main characters trying to get away from the zombie invasion. They take refuge at the mall, and it follows their adventures in the mall. There's not really a lot that goes on in the movie, I guess specifically scary, that has to do with zombies. It's kind of a good chunk of the movie is them in the mall and kind of their life in the mall and what they're doing. The movie doesn't really pick up steam until the actual biker gang gets into
bikers,
the biker gang is led by none other than
Tom Savini.
Who actually does the makeup in this movie? And this is this the first movie that he did? Is this his start? Or?
I don't think it's. I'm not sure if it's the first movie he did, but he actually came back as a real life photographer from the Vietnam War. And so he photographed dead bodies over there, and whether it's U.S. soldiers or Vietnamese or whatever, and so he had a real eye for detail when it came to gore, which is really disturbing, but. He used those visions and that experience to a very awesome effect in these movies. So whatever you say about him, he did, his acting is great, dude, because he's super over the top and cheesy and whatever in the movie is the leader of the biker gang. But his special effects on the movie they were kind of groundbreaking because they're all practical, no CG, obviously. And he did a fantastic job with anything that he set his mind to. If George Romero said, I need this, he said, okay, no problem. And he got it done somehow. Even if he didn't know how to do it at the time, he would say, okay, and then he would just get it done.
Yeah.
So he's one of the stars of the film, by far.
Dawn of the Dead, it's definitely one of the movies where it's, I mean, I guess like we were talking about earlier in a different episode where it's not fast paced, it's very slow, especially when you think of zombie movies now, or even the remake of Dawn of the Dead. The zombies are faster, there's a lot of action going on, there's a lot of...
Or The Walking Dead, the TV series.
Or even The Walking Dead, there's a lot going on, but Dawn of the Dead is one of those movies where, even if you take the predecessor. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. Even when you take the
Night of the Living Dead
predecessor. Yes, and that had a little more excitement to it because they were locked in the basement and there were zombies and people were kind of getting infected. Dawn of the Dead is a lot slower. It's a lot slower pace. And I know that there's a lot of people think it's about commercialism and stuff like that, and kind of like the zombies are just like the whole underlying theme is that people are just zombies going and buying stuff at the mall.
Shopping stuff.
Yeah, and
shopping
they're not
for
really
stuff in the mall. Yeah.
And so that was kind of like the underlining theme of the movie.
And Romero even said this. It's more of a satire as far as like when it comes to the zombies. It's like us shopping in malls and the consumerism of modern America.
Yeah.
So he said that's kind of what it's. Some of it is what it's about.
The symbolism of his movie, and so the movie is a classic. There's definitely a great special effects towards the end of the movie when the biker gang comes, and then they got to escape the mall because they left all the zombies in. And it's not like the remakes or like The Walking Dead. I know The Walking Dead doesn't have like fast zombies like 28 Days Later or the Dawn of the Dead remake. The zombies are slower, and even though they're slower, they still attack like the bikers. And I think part of the movie is that the humans in the movie are getting so erratic around the zombies. Like you see some of the bikers like playing around with them, and then it's kind
of... They get confident. That's the issue. They get cocky and confident.
And it's funny because then they get caught, and then they get eaten and everything like that. So it's almost like we don't even know who the actual bad guys in this movie are. You think the zombies are the bad guys, but the bikers are technically the bad guys. The zombies are kind of just wandering around, and you're just trying to avoid them. But it's definitely a classic. It's a great movie to watch. It's the father. It's one of the fathers of the zombie genres. So definitely check it out for Halloween. It's like I said, it's a lot slower pace. I remember watching it when I was kind of just laying on the couch and whatever. There's not a lot of excitement to it, but it's a fun movie to watch, and it does pick up steam the second half of the movie.
Well, I would say that the first half of the movie, the first part of the movie is where they're in that apartment building when the zombie outbreak first takes place. You don't really know what's going on. They throw you into it. And it's really violent and gory because there are people in the apartment who are getting attacked by zombies. The SWAT team goes in. They start taking out some of the zombies, and it's really violent. And then all of a sudden they get choplifted out of there. Mm-hmm. And that's where... gosh, dude, I feel bad. I haven't seen it for a while. So I'm trying to remember how they get to meet the flyboy, as he's known, the pilot and the reporter, the newswoman.
If I remember correctly, I can't remember if they went to they went to the building or whatever, but they have to get gas, and I think that's where they met him. And so
that's where that's where they meet the other one or two characters, right? So. Yeah, so and that has one of the most famous scenes ever where the zombie goes up. It's known as one of the best gore effects, where the zombie is creeping up on these people in the chopper on the launch pad where they're going to check out this gasoline station, and the zombie stands up mistakenly on this box, and it takes the top of his head off.
Yeah,
he goes, and then all this blood sprays out, and he goes, and he falls down. So again, that's Tom Savini. And then they basically all they're flying around this chopper. These four main heroes, or the protagonists, are flying around in this chopper, and they find this mall that seems to be safe or deserted or whatever. So they land in the mall, and what's funny about it is they get really cocky and confident inside this mall where they have total protection. All the doors are locked, everything's sealed. And then they have access to guns and ammo with a gun shop, like outdoor
which they used to have in malls, apparently.
Yeah, they used to have them. They don't have them anymore. But they have this outdoor shop that's it's like a pro bass kind of shop, whatever, where it's hunting, fishing, whatever. So they have ammunition and guns. They of course have a food court, so they have all the food they want or whatever. They have all these different stores where they have clothes, food, shelter, warmth, and then they have guns and ammunition. And but it's still not enough because once the outside world comes into the play, like you mentioned, the bikers, then things go bad from there. So it's the first half of the movie. They have the creepy start where it's the apartment building's being overrun by zombies. Then they have them getting out of there, getting to safety in this mall that seems perfect, and they can keep all these zombies at bay. But then by the end of it, the human element comes back into it over the zombies. It's way worse than the zombies. They let the zombies in because they crash through the doors, they break them open, and then they, basically have chaos happen after that because all of a sudden when the human element comes into it, that's when the problems start.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a disaster movie. The zombies are the disaster.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, humans are the disaster.
Oh, yeah.
No, but it's one of Tom Savini's, not first works, but his early work as far as really cutting-edge gore and special effects as far as horror movies. And he does an amazing job. I mean, the blood and gore effects in it, again, it's weird to talk about that like, oh, it's great. Yeah. But they really are fantastic because when zombies get shot or they're lopping arms off or whatever it is, it's really over-the-top cartoony. Mm-hmm. Especially with the music that's going on the whole time.
Yeah,
like in the mall, it's really, it's like this almost circus music that's really funny and fun, but at the same time, this horrific stuff is happening.
Yeah.
And so... Yeah. I also read that George Romero had to rent out this mall. I forgot what state it's in, but they had to rent out this mall only on the weekends. So they can only film, I think it was 2 days a night, or maybe it was more than that, but they basically can only shoot from, say, 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. every night in this mall.
Monroeville
Mall. So that was something where they were very limited with their shooting with this movie, which is why it took so long for them to film it. Because they only had so many nights they could film on. So these actors and the crew and everyone would sleep during the day. They would get up at night and be ready to shoot when the mall was closed, basically. And I read a great article where someone was like going, I could almost imagine, when, the mall would open in the morning again, hopefully the cleanup crew, the film crew would do a good enough job cleaning up all the blood and the brain splatters and all this stuff from them shooting the zombies to where in the mornings, it'd be funny if some like pedestrian would come in and they'd see like a plant like splatter with blood or something like that, and be like, wait, what is this? So anyways.
Yeah, so on here it says use of actual open mall during Christmas shopping season.
Oh, it's during Christmas?
Christmas shopping season caused numerous time constraints. Filming began nightly once the mall closed, starting at 11 p.m. and ending at 7 a.m.
There you go.
When the automated music came on. So right around
So they
Christmas.
had 8 hours each night, and it was during Christmas season, which is the heavy shopping season of the year. Yeah, so this is one of those movies where it's not just a staple in the horror genre, and from every zombie movie since then has come from, and originated from, and kind of been birthed from, but it's also one of those movies where it's almost a miracle it got made. If that makes sense, because it's such, it was such a hard production effort that they put in, and then you had Tom Savini doing these amazing effects and everything, but that must have been a really long, difficult film to do.
Yeah, and it looked very long and boring. No, I'm just joking. It's no, but it's one like I said before. It's one
if
of those.
If you like
movies,
zombie movies, you have to watch it.
It's like sure. I said, even if you don't like it, maybe it's just too slow for you. If you're a zombie fan, you can't call yourself a zombie fan without saying you've watched the original Dawn of the Dead. So definitely put it on your list to watch this Halloween. The next movie on our list is Suspiria. Suspiria is directed by Dario Argento, and it came out in 1977. Suspiria is one of those movies that is very artistic. Argento is known for that, kind of just some people would call him off the wall, kind of out there. But it's always very artistic and very in your face when it comes to the style that Argento brings to his scary movies. Chris is actually going to take the lead on this one because he's the one that's seen it. So
I don't think anybody else has really seen the movie. I particularly really like this movie. It like Jesus said, very artistic. I mean, Italian director Dario Argento directed it. And it's kind of one of those ones where you don't see a lot of movies centering around like witches and witchcraft.
Spoiler.
Sorry. Spoiler. Wait. Maybe we should go back in and Jesus before you should do a little spoiler alert.
Yeah,
but
I think it's going with the theme of how we reviewed the movies.
Hey, Chris, isn't it? It's one of those things where it's like a coven of witches.
Yeah.
And there are these ballet dancers that go to dance in this place. Is that what it is?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a dance school.
So this girl goes away to a dance school, and as she's staying there, she starts to realize that this group of people she's with are related to this coven of witches. And I mean, overall, I don't remember a ton of this movie. I just remember really, really liking it. Particularly, there's scenes that are just like over the top. Like there's a scene I remember where somebody gets stabbed in the heart or something, and you actually see the heart pumping with the blood shooting out, and it's just like so creepy. Like I haven't seen much like that.
It's like a comic book.
Yeah, before the 70s and even after the 70s. It's just really, really creepy, artistic, and just different. It's really unique for the 70s horror genre.
Yeah, it seems like, and I have to admit, again, and I think, Jesus, have you seen this movie all the way through from start to finish?
I have not seen this one all the way through.
Okay.
I just got like the quick hits of, the most popular scenes and the most popular clips or whatever, and, you kind of catch it on TV during Halloween time. But I remember I think I started the movie with Chris, and it was just a little too, like, weird. Like Argento is, he's very talented, but Argento is very weird, and he just has a style that you
it's the Italian. It's the Italian style. It's Italian director style. And it's like if you've watched, I know you've watched Zombie 2.
Yeah, I was going to use that example.
And that's
too.
Lucio Fulci.
Yeah.
Or just like the there's the Beyond.
Yes.
Or the City of the Living Dead, where it's very weird. Italian. Well, again, weird to us being Americans.
Yeah.
So they're very weirdly directed movies because they're not shooting things the way we would or telling stories the way we would. Mm-hmm. They're very stylistic.
Yeah, and you know what? You're right, and I think I thought about that because, as Americans, we get our types of movie, and maybe people don't get our types of humor. And I know, I'm part Mexican, and I know there's Mexican movies that I get that are hilarious, and American people don't, and they're like, I don't get it. I'm like, right. No, it's hilarious. You don't get it? It's like, or it could be the way it sells. And there's even more, actual Mexican movies, I'm like, I don't get it. Because it's just way too Mexican for me, and I'm like, I don't understand it. Whereas my dad might, crack up or understand exactly what's going on. And I think that's what this movie is because of the Italian style of it. It's just, for me, I remember watching it and I'm like, this is getting really weird. And I'm like, I'm not following. And so I'm going to give it another shot this year. And because I want to just kind of go with it with I'm not going to say open mind, but maybe just more of an idea of okay, this isn't a movie targeted for American audience. He made this movie as an Italian, maybe for Italians or just for his own his own style. And
good point, man. Just smoke a bowl and understand.
It's legal.
It's legal.
Understand the universe. No, it's one of those movies where it seems, again, being someone who has failed in the sense that I've never seen it from start to finish. I started watching it once, maybe 3 or 4 Halloweens ago, and I fell asleep, and then so I watched half of it. And then I watched the second half, maybe 2 years ago, but I still feel like I haven't seen the whole thing. I need to sit down this year. My goal is this year I'm going to sit down and watch it from start to finish. But it's one of those where it seems like, when it comes to art, hyper-realism is an art form. This one seems hyper-realism. So it seems very the colors are very comic book-ish. Mm-hmm. And definitely. Everything's very it's very colorful and splashy and very whatever. So it's really it's creepy. The music is great. Mm-hmm. The score is great. Argento is a great director, but it seems very hyper realistic. But it's very I don't know how to describe it. It's very intense. It's very weird. But again, I need to sit down and see the whole thing from start to finish, all the way to feel like I got what he was going for.
Almost like Phantasm, but I think we kind of like not grown to love Phantasm. I think we always loved Phantasm, but it's like it does have those like offbeat like cuts. From what I remember watching, it has those offbeat cuts where you're just kind of like, what is going on? I don't get it.
And most Italian directors have those very close in, super hyper close-ups of the characters' faces, if you guys have noticed. That's an Italian style, where they do a really hyper close-up of the characters' faces to where all you see is eyes, nose, face, or the mouth, and that's about it. And it's funny because it's not an American style, where they zoom in really quick all the way to the hyper, micro close-up, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting because that seems like, and the colors they use in Suspiria are very vivid. Like the blood is very bright red.
Yeah, and
when the girl's crashing through the window, I don't want to give away too much, but when the girl's crashing through the glass, it's very hyper realistic. It seems like it's real and it's creepy and it's awful and it's scary, but it seems like a comic book panel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think the thing about it too that is creepy but doesn't lend itself to sequel or to a lot to the effect going on much afterwards is it's more of like the girl feeling uncomfortable where she's at, and there's this coven of witches that are evil and that they're like the main antagonist. But where you're looking at certain movies like Halloween, there's like this main antagonist that's going after everybody.
It's very obvious.
Where where it's not a very obvious like central bad guy.
Right.
So Suspiria, definitely one to check out.
Definitely.
We are saying that as people who actually have not even seen from start to finish. Only one of us has seen it from start to finish.
Well, Chris has.
And so we would understand if you guys don't want to check it out, or you stop it and then decide to check it out later. But we are going to check it out this year for sure, from start to finish, just to show the dedication.
Yeah, and I would say, as far as Italian directors go, definitely check out Dario Argento. Excuse me, because he's one of the directors who directed Suspiria, and he's also the director who directed the European release of Dawn of the Dead. And so he's one of those staples in horror film history, as well as a Lucio Fulci, who directed Zombie 2. He did The Beyond, and as well as City of the Dead, and a lot of others. So, it's one of those where the Italian directors or the Italian films are definitely different and interesting, and they're maybe not what we're used to, but they're very interesting. Mia. Yeah, they say that long in movies. Yeah, they say that long in the movies, so ignore that, past that. But no, but they have a very different style, and that's cool to check out to see what they do with their DP, with their directors of photography, what they do with their soundtracks. Lucio Fulci, for instance, is he uses a lot of the same scores throughout his movies, stuff like that. So it's really interesting to see what they do with their films. So toss back to you, Jesus.
So Suspiria, check it out. Like I said, it's a little foreign because it's a foreign director, but check it out. It is definitely a main movie for Halloween. Like I said, it might take you a couple Halloweens to actually watch it. If you could sit through it this Halloween, awesome. You might like it, you might not, but definitely it's one to check out. The next movie on our list is Carrie. It is a novel by Stephen King, and it is adapted into a film directed by Brian De Palma, and it came out in 1976.
So wait, before we start this one, if anybody has kids, they should probably have them leave the room or mute this.
Don't listen to this one with your kids, because we're not really going to say bad words, but there's stuff we're going to talk about that's not
adult.
It's more adult. So if you have any kids listening to this, I mean, have them listen to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre one, but not this one. Anyways, just that's a forewarning, because we're going to be saying stuff that is just maybe not for kids or whatever. So anyways,
would you say it's a coming of age story?
I would definitely say it's a coming of age story.
Yeah.
Let's just say we've all been there. Well, not all of us, but anyways. So Carrie is a movie about a young. It's kind of funny because when we saw it, she's supposed to be like 15, but she looks like 45. But anyways,
is it Sissy Spacek?
Yeah, it's Sissy Spacek. And so anyways, yeah, she looks way old, but she's supposed to be like 14 or 15 or.
She's like 14 going on 60.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, the point of the movie is that she's kind of a nerd, and she's in the locker room, and.
It's period blood!
Oh my gosh. And the reason we say it like that is because the girls start picking on her because she has her period in the shower.
But I have to say that this movie probably is a lot more creepy to guys watching it.
Yeah. So, okay, me and Chris watched this and we're just like, ew. Because it's just like, I don't know, as guys.
It's like she has her period for the first time.
She has her period for the first time, and she is
doesn't know what it is.
But and here's the thing, like, she's so unaware that happens, and she's freaking out. So she's thinking that there's something wrong, like
she's
dying
walking around the locker room holding hands with blood,
and so
like
all the girls, all the cheerleader girls are making fun of her, and they're all throwing their tampons at her, and they're like, period blood, period
plug
blood.
It up.
It's so gross. Wow. And I mean, Chris, I look at Chris, I'm like, why are we watching this? This is disgusting. This is like worse than Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It was like some movie they probably showed in high school.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, this is another one where I have not seen all the way through.
So
I've watched 45 to, well, I've probably watched 65 to 70% of this movie.
Yeah.
But I've never seen the whole thing. So I've seen a lot of the intro scenes of her experiencing what you guys just talked about, which is awful and very traumatizing, to where you can see why she is so traumatized, and then her mother, like her relationship with her mother, which is bad.
They're all gonna laugh at you.
And then the ending where she gets back at everybody.
So you've pretty much seen everything except for the middle of the movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen the middle of the movie.
So I mean, and the whole point, like, so she has her period, and she like. There's out of all the mean cheerleader girls, or not, there's just the girls. There's one like nice one, and so she's like helping her out.
Doesn't she like get her boyfriend to go to prom with her?
So so then the nice mean girl or whatever gets her boyfriend to go to prom.
The nice mean girl.
Well, the nice mean girl. The nice popular girl. How about that? So she's friends with all the mean girls or whatever. So anyways, Sissy Spacek, Carrie, she goes home and she has this really weird like mom. So she's the mom that actually thinks. Like everything is a sin. Like, so she's like that really, really, really holy roller mom that like
she's super hardcore religious.
Like dating's a sin, kissing's a sin.
This podcast is
sin. This podcast is a sin. Stuff like everything is sin. And so Carrie, as weird as she is weird because of her mother, and so she's trying to be normal, and so she wants to go to prom and meet, go on a date with boys, and so one of the nice girls tells her boyfriend to take Carrie to prom. And so he's like, I don't want to do that. But he actually's like, fine. So he takes her to prom. And the whole point, I mean, everyone's seen the scene. Carrie gets voted prom queen. And she didn't actually win. I can't remember. She didn't win. She got...
the girl who was supposed to be prom queen got in trouble for... What did they do to Carrie? They did something to Carrie where they weren't able to go to prom.
Oh, that's right. Because her and her boyfriend, John Travolta, who's in the movie.
Like, oh my god.
Oh my god.
This is going to be like dancing.
Oh my god, it's like greaser, man. Oh my god.
Grease lightning, man. Anyways, so John Travolta's the villain boyfriend, and the mean girl, she couldn't go to prom because, she did something to Carrie. And so they go kill a pig, and so they get pig's blood, and that's where that iconic
sounds reasonable.
Yeah, it sounds like a reasonable thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what their issue is with Carrie. They just don't like her, and so
sounds like
she's
like
weird.
Pigs.
Yeah, they don't like pigs either.
She's religious.
She's very religious, and well, maybe because she's like 60 and she's like in high school. Who knows? Point being is she gets the pig blood all over her, and then it's like this like psychedelic. The mom's like, "No, I'm gonna laugh at you."
Yeah, but she becomes prom queen. I think that's the whole point. Is she was the least popular, and she becomes the most popular.
She gets elevated.
She gets elevated to prom queen, and the other people, John Travolta and his girlfriend, can't stand it.
Yeah.
And so when they dumped the pig's blood on her, it was like the ultimate, like, you rose to the top and now we're gonna bring you back down.
Yeah. And so throughout the movie, so Carrie gets out. I'll return to that. Carrie gets the blood. It's the iconic scene where she has the blood, and then her telekinetic powers start going on.
Spoiler alert, by the way.
Spoiler alert. I mean, everyone is, what's the word I'm looking for? Everyone is...
Flamer.
Flamer, no.
Everyone's a target for
Everyone's a target. Well, no, everyone is to blame, because the way she's viewing it is that people are all laughing at her, which her mom told her. They're all going to laugh at you. But that's not what's really happening. Everyone's like in shock, like, oh my gosh, what just happened to Carrie? But the way she's viewing it is that they're all laughing and picking on her. And so she just loses it. And she uses her telekinetic powers and takes all of them out. Whether it's electrocuting, fire, throwing tables or stuff. And anyway, so throughout the movie, you start seeing that Carrie has these types of powers. They're not shown in full force, like at the end scene. But they're shown that she has these kind of powers where she can move objects with her mind.
So this is like where we come and do the stop bullying, like, phase.
Yeah. So
no bullying.
Yeah, our little ad here of
don't bully people.
Do not bully people, okay? Because you don't want to,
you don't know if they're maybe
get burned up, and
they might be
borderline Carrie.
They might be borderline. It's an actual diagnosis, the Carrie diagnosis. So. But honestly, it's when it's kind of like honestly sad to think about it. If you're really thinking about if you think about Carrie, it kind of does kind of resonate in the sense of like when kids shoot up schools. Like I know people who say that they don't pick a target, but everyone is a target because no one was sticking up for them. Yeah. The people who just watch and observe, they're just as much to blame as the bully that was picking on them. And that's kind of what Carrie is. It's kind of like that idea of, it's kind of like a foreshadowing of the society we live in today and kind of schools. And it's scary to think about that, which kind of makes watching Carrie kind of creepy.
Because she's lashing out at all of humanity.
Yeah. She's
not just people who have done her wrong.
Exactly. It's like in our society, we might ask, like, why didn't that school shooter just pick the bully or whoever else? Not everyone, not everyone should have been a target. And this is a movie where everyone was a target. Even the nice people that were nice to her, were got the short end of that stick. The counselor that helped her, she got it. And so even the boy, everyone. And
the boy that took her to prom, that was just doing it because his
they all got the brunt of it. And so I've always correlated to that, and so it's disturbing when you think about that. But the movie in itself is a not cult following, it is a cult classic. You need to check it out. I don't know if I have not read the novel by Stephen King. I don't know if there's any difference from the movie or the novel.
It's pretty close.
It's pretty close. So it's by Stephen King, and so it's a great movie. And I'm gonna say it's a great movie in the sense where it's just a great movie because it's a classic.
It was Stephen King's first novel, too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you know, is there any correlation of why he wrote it, being a male, or is it just, okay. No. But anyways, as guys, it's a little uncomfortable. Maybe girls don't they probably don't care. But for guys, it's uncomfortable. But it's definitely a great movie that you should definitely check out for Halloween. And, yeah, so bring the kids back into the room. Sex ed is over. Next on our list is one of my all-time favorites, if not my all-time favorite, and that is the movie Halloween. It is by John Carpenter, and it came out in 1978. It had a budget of about $300,000 to $325,000. It is the Halloween staple. I mean, it's in the title. Oh, yeah. It comes out every Halloween. They show it everywhere. It's been sequeled, it's been prequeled, it's been remade, it's been parodied, it's been everything. If you don't know who Michael Myers is, you need to check it out this year. So Halloween is definitely one of my favorite movies. And the one thing that I love about Halloween is just the aura of it. The score, the soundtrack is so amazing. It fits so perfectly with it.
Which is done by John Carpenter.
It's done by John, yeah. It stars Jamie Lee Curtis as the protagonist, and Someone has a crush on Jamie Lee Curtis, and Sam Loomis as
Sam Loomis.
Oh, no, sorry, not Sam Loomis. Sam Loomis is the character's name. I apologize.
No, it's not even that. It's
Donald
Dr.
Pleasance.
No, Sam.
Donald Pleasance.
Sam Loomis. Sam is his first name. Sam Loomis. Dr.
Continue.
Loomis. Yeah. You guys I know my Halloween, okay? So
I agree.
Dr. Loomis is Donald Pleasance, also known as Sam Loomis. So,
I'm sorry, all I heard his name was Dr. Loomis, so I credit him that he has a doctorate.
It's like when you know, like your mom and dad have real names, but you're like, oh, what's your mom?
No, they don't.
No? Oh, okay, well, so...
It's just mom, dad.
You guys are so ridiculous.
Okay,
Hey, Dad Loomis.
So anyways, Dr. Loomis is the protagonist, one of the protagonists in this movie, and he's out to find Michael Myers, who has escaped from a mental psych ward. And
From Haddonfield.
So the movie starts off with Michael, and Michael Myers is a young kid, and it's kind of got that first-person view, and it's very. I mean, it gets right to it right off the bat. He ends up killing. No, we're gonna give you a lot of spoilers if you have not seen this movie. So I'm telling you right now, if you have not seen this movie,
if you've not seen it, turn this off. Go watch it.
Go watch it. If you plan to watch it for Halloween, save this episode until afterwards and then listen to it. But because there's a lot of spoilers. So he in the beginning, it's first person view and it shows
he's like 6 or 7.
Yeah, it doesn't even show who it is, so you don't even know it's Michael. And so he goes and he kills his sister, who's like a teenager.
Who's like 17 or 18.
Yeah, and her boyfriend. And so they're like having sex in the couch or bed or whatever. And so he goes and he stabs them. I mean, it's really cheesy and everything. It's not graphic or gory. But he kills them and then he goes and waits outside. The parents show up. You look at the parents and then they take off the mask and then it faces the other way and you see who it is. And it's it's like a 6 or 7 year old kid. And then you're kind of in shock, like, whoa, this was a kid. Like, because you don't know who the killer is. You don't know if the killer is, like, a burglar or who it is, and then you find out it's this kid. And so then from there, it goes on to later on in life, and it goes into Dr. Loomis, and he's telling the story about Michael and to the nurse and all this stuff. And they go to the psych ward. It's raining, the perfect atmosphere, and then he escapes.
That's, like, I think that's, for me, the creepiest scene of the movie is where they pull up to the asylum and see like all the people running around like crazy.
Yeah.
And then Michael jumping on top of the car.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's just so creepy.
And
like,
he doesn't he grab the nurse through the window too, and then he like lets her go. Like that's like super creepy. One of the things about Halloween, I think one of the things that I love about the movie Halloween is there's so much atmosphere in the movie. Whether it's during the daytime, at nighttime, like the first scene when they're at the psych ward, it's raining. It's like that scene is just like Halloween, like rainy. It's scary. You hear this kind of scary.
It's set up for the fall.
Yeah, it's set up for the fall, autumn, all that stuff. And so then after that, you get into the kind of detracts from that, and then you focus on the other protagonist, which is Jamie Lee Curtis, who goes by the name of Laurie Strode. And it kind of goes through like that whole teenage mentality. Her friends are going to homecoming, and there's like a Halloween dance or who knows or whatever, and she doesn't have a date, but she's babysitting, and so just the typical.
It's like a coming of age kind of thing.
Yeah.
But this role established her as the Scream Queen, which is a popular title now, where people say, "Oh, who's the next Scream Queen?" Well, Jamie Lee Curtis was the first in Halloween. She was truly the first when it comes to the Scream Queens.
Yeah,
she was the first one of like the horror movie female protagonist who screams really loud. I guess that's the best way to describe it.
I think for like these movies is like for horror movies in general, like when they say the Scream Queens, like you notice most of the women who like are in the movies who are being chased down by killers or whatever, they always have to scream. Like whoever screams the loudest gets the part. You're like, oh. Well, how can you scream? You know, a lot of guys kind of do it too, but the Scream Queen, you know, and so she screams a lot in this movie. If you ever think about it, like open that door, you know, he's right behind.
Oh, she totally does.
So, anyways, so and then there's a little. I was gonna say Tommy Jarvis. It's not Tommy Jarvis.
Whoa, that's Friday the 13th.
That's Friday the 13th. We'll get to that one later.
That's part 4. Yeah.
But there's another character in the film. And he's the young protagonist, kind of. He's kind of like... So So there's kind of like tiers of protagonists in the movies. There's Dr. Loomis, who's kind of out there to get Michael and take him down because he's pure evil. Then there's Laurie Strode, who's the babysitter, and she's viewed as like the innocents, you know, like her friends are out having sex and kind of doing all this stuff,
right,
and doing things that they're smoking weed and whatever. And she's like the good girl.
She's the pure one.
The pure one. She doesn't have a date. She doesn't have a thing for.
She's watching the kids of her friends, her neighbor's family for Halloween.
It was Tommy Doyle.
Yeah. Tommy Doyle. So yeah,
Tommy Doyle.
And so Tommy Doyle is the other protagonist, where he's kind of the kind of scared kid. He believes in the boogeyman, but he doesn't know what to really believe. And so it kind of goes into like these things. He doesn't have a big part, but his is the part that we all played as kids because we're scared of the boogeyman. We're scared that there's this guy out there chasing us.
Right.
And so so those are the three hierarchies of the people, the protagonists, and then you go to the antagonist, and that's Michael Myers. And Michael Myers is the ultimate like badass. And like if you think like my favorite serial killer horror movie guy is Jason Voorhees, but it's like
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
So it's Jason Voorhees 1, and then like Michael Myers 1A. So it's like Michael
barely
Myers
below.
barely below. And so it's just one of those things where it's like he walks slow, he takes his time, he's like an unstoppable force, and you don't know why. There's no explanation as to why Michael is evil. There's no explanation as to why he's doing the things he's doing. There's no explanation as to why. He's just doing it. Laurie Strode, you find out later in the film that Laurie Strode is actually his sister. Spoiler.
Right.
So, maybe I should say spoiler before I say it. But anyways, but
not the sister he caught.
But yeah, but see, here's the thing: he killed one of his sisters already. Why does he want to kill another one? So it's just none of these questions are answered, which makes Halloween so amazing. Because you never know. But he kills men too, so yeah, there goes that. It's just one of those movies that it gives you so little to work with, but it's so perfect.
But I think I can set up why it's so good, though, in a few things. Number one, the score. Mm-hmm. John Carpenter, the director, does the score. If you guys have seen his other movies, like The Thing, The Fog, Halloween, things like that, he has actually done the score for those. And I think that's no joke. I think that's to keep production costs down, because he could do those. So he usually, we're talking the 80s, so it's usually a synth pad, right? So it's usually synth,
which is
more
like
synth-driven.
It's totally like coming back now, like the
You talk about Stranger Things, you talk about the new It movie in 2017, things like that.
It Follows.
Exactly. It Follows is a perfect soundtrack to describe it. So it's very synth heavy, and really there's not much else. There's not a lot of drums, guitar, bass, whatever, vocals even. It's mostly synth driven.
And it's a lot of single note too. It's all like when you do the synth, it's all like single keys. Whether he's playing the B flat or C or F or E minor or whatever, it's all single keys. It's not like he's going from one key to the next. It's all like bump 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 dun 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 ding ding ding.
Right. I find that very interesting because John Carpenter's themes are very like the ones he's composed. They're very simplistic, but they're very effective. I mean, the most effective one in Halloween is definitely the dun, da dun.
Oh yeah,
dun. When Michael Myers rises from the closet, where Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis's character, stabs him in the face, right? Mm-hmm. And again, spoiler alert. So it's towards the end of the movie, where it's literally the scene where you think he's dead, but he comes back to life, and it's a great scene. And I've heard a lot of cinema reviewers or movie reviewers talk about this movie to where they say one of the most successful things about the Halloween series is where the score is great because it's very ominous. They don't show, again, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they don't show a lot of blood or gore. It's very minimal, but it's the scenes and the setups that show the intensity of something very disturbing, but they don't show a lot of, again, it's not decapitations for the first one. I'm talking about the first Halloween movie, just the first one. They don't show a lot of blood. They don't show a lot of, gross stabbings or, entrails or whatever it is, decapitations. Mm-hmm. It's very minimal in its approach because they had a small budget for it. But this movie garnered critical acclaim and appreciation worldwide very quickly. And I think it's because of John Carpenter's direction and his score and the fact that he one thing I heard several people talk about is that whereas Friday the 13th or some of those type of movies where the evil, you're kind of taking yourself to where the evil is, which you go to a destination like Camp Crystal Lake. That's where the evil is. That's where Michael Myers is. That's where the monster is.
The backwoods.
Right. Whereas Halloween, you have a lot of first-person perspective where you the evil's coming towards you. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the shots he does in the movie are from first-person perspective of Michael Myers or, kind of the killer, and it's a lot of the slow breathing shots of the, through the mask or whatever it is. And they establish those a lot more throughout the movie, the series, I'm sorry. But it's very interesting because there's a difference between the evil coming to you and you going to the evil. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, he did a masterful job as far as directing, writing, the way the characters were set up. Not only set up, but also how they were taken out. This is one that I could show to my wife or show to other people who are squeamish with horror movies, and they could stand it because it's not super bloody, it's not super gory, but the intensity and the thriller suspense aspect is there, if that makes sense. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just like so many of the John Carpenter movies where even though the subject matter is really dark and creepy, it's accessible to so many people and so many levels. Yeah. I just like the fact that, I mean, it's one I probably won't show to my kids anytime soon because my kids are 10 years and younger, but it's something that, like, I look forward to showing with them, sometime soon because it's a total classic.
Yeah, and it's like, I know how, like, earlier we talked about, like, The Exorcist, and it's like, I know for me, like, my son's 3, and it's like, even when he's like 15, 16, it's
even
like,
when he's 27.
Yeah, I'm really not going to recommend watching The Exorcist, but like Halloween is definitely going to be like one that's like, I could already see it now, having a little argument with mother and being like, with my wife and being like, oh, he's okay, he can watch it. Hey honey,
go away.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, the movie is simple enough because like after the first scene, like, because it kind of kicks off with a murder. But there's no gore. It's very light. It's kind of like, it's a little even cheesy. Like, when he kills the sister, she's like, ah, it's like very kind of light.
It's very Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah. And so, but after that, there's no murder. There's nothing for like about an hour into the movie. So everything is just set up. Everything is just theme. Everything is just atmosphere.
And Carpenter does a great job of building up and with the atmosphere. There's always pumpkins in the shots, like jack-o'-lanterns. So it sets the stage for Halloween, which he does a great job of. Mm-hmm. But also, what I think that you're touching on maybe too is the fact that when Michael Myers starts running amok on Halloween night, and he starts killing Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis's characters, next door neighbors or whatever.
Or her friends.
It's interesting because they're in the suburban neighborhood in, I think, Illinois, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So... But it's interesting because it's this really busy neighborhood usually. Like all the kids during the daytime when the sun's up and the lights out, they're walking through the neighborhood. There's tons of kids in the shots and stuff like that. But it's funny because or not funny, but it's great. It's really well done because when the sun goes down and nighttime strikes, that's when Michael Myers starts going out and killing people.
Yeah.
And then there's this great scene. One of my favorite scenes of the movie is where Jamie Lee Curtis is looking out the window when she's calling her friend across the street to see what's going on, if she's okay, right? Uh-huh. And she looks out towards her neighbor's house, and there's a scene of Michael Myers carrying the body of her friend up into the house or around the side of the house, and she freaks out and she goes out there and he's gone. And it's one of those things where it's that fast. Mm-hmm. It's a really quick shot. It's very quick edit. But it's shot so well because you feel this isolation.
Yeah.
Kind of like later where he does with John Carpenter, the director, where he does with The Thing, where they're in the Antarctic by themselves. There's this alien creature, and this creature is taking them out one by one. And Michael Myers is kind of that supernatural or that otherworldly creature who can take out all these people, and nobody else is around for some reason.
And one of my favorite scenes of this movie is that I love when Tommy Doyle he's trying to scare the other girl. So there's Laurie Strode is babysitting to the kids, and one of them's Tommy Doyle, and the other's this other girl. And Tommy Doyle's hiding behind the window and trying to scare the other girl that's with them. And while he's trying,
is this the costume shop or is this?
No, this is at the house.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so he's hiding behind and
they're watching The Thing.
And they're watching the original Thing.
Yeah,
and so he's like, the original Thing.
Yeah, Howard Hawks.
Yeah, and so then he's like trying to scare her, and while he's behind like the sheets in the window, he looks out the window and he sees Michael Myers carrying another body too, and so I think he like freaks out and he's like, oh, there's a thing. And what I love about this movie is that happens a lot where you like see Michael Myers through the window, or you see. Even when Laurie Strode is walking in broad daylight after school in suburbia on the sidewalk, Michael Myers is right in front of him.
Well,
and then he moves, and they're like, "Look at this creep!" It's like the killer just reveals himself. Right?
Yeah, there's so many scenes. Like even the scene where Laurie's friend, I can't remember her name, her girlfriend is in the house with the boyfriend, and they just did the act.
Did the deed.
And she tells him to go down and get beers. And she's like laying in bed.
Yeah.
And like sees like Michael. She doesn't know it's Michael Myers, but walk up with like the sheet over.
Yeah.
And she just like thinks like, oh, whatever. But like it's like, just the whole thing, like you don't know who the person is in front of you. And it turns out it's Michael Myers covered with a bed sheet, and
kills her. Yeah.
Well, she did the deed, right?
Yeah,
evil.
Shame
Sex
on them.
is bad.
Yep.
Weed is bad. Babysitting is bad, apparently, because he wants to. So, but she.
For the record, sorry to interrupt. The Thing from Another World, 1951, Howard Hawks. I'm going to take full credit for that. I didn't look that up. I just guessed.
You looked it up.
I rule. No, but it's interesting because The Thing from Another World is what John Carpenter goes on to remake in 1985, right? Which we already reviewed. So
no, we're going to review.
Or we're going to review. I'm sorry, next week or
the 80s.
In the couple of weeks or whatever it is. Which is still one of my favorite all-time horror movies. Is the remake of The Thing by
not the remake of the remake of The Thing.
Not the remake of the remake, but the remake. The singular remake. Yeah, but it's interesting because John Carpenter seems to have a appreciation for people being isolated, if that makes sense, like feeling isolated, being alone, and the horror kind of coming to them as far as again like the original Thing where they're in the Antarctic and something lands that's alien and it's coming towards them, and it's they can't help themselves, they have to protect themselves from this thing. So I kind of feel that way with Halloween, where it's this Michael Myers is not a person as much as a force. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's kind of this force of evil that's coming to want to get revenge or want to enact some kind of terror in this town of Haddonfield. And I think Carpenter does such a great job with directing, the editing, and the music. That's so good. And it's just one of these where if you're not watching this every Halloween, I mean, it's freaking called Halloween.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those where if you're not watching this every year, you're a dummy because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's so fun. It's so well done. And again, you could show this to a lot of people who are not horror movie buffs because it's not super gory. It's not super bloody. It's the right amount of intense suspense, thriller, horror, and it's so well done on such a low budget that it makes it campy, but it rose above that with all the critical ratings, the box office response, it became a non-campy movie. I don't know how else to describe it.
And to end with go watch Halloween, I'm going to say this. What makes Halloween amazing is the fact that in itself, the movie Halloween, so like for us, we don't love Halloween because of the exact date, October 31st. We love Halloween because what leads up to it. Just like Christmas, it's like we love decorating our house. We love putting lights up and decorating, putting tombstones and doing podcasts and episodes about Halloween movies, watching Halloween movies throughout the month. And so what the movie Halloween does is it's kind of like that. So it's like the end is like Halloween night, like the October 31st. Michael Myers is there, but the whole setup is Halloween.
The build up is the fun time,
and that's where Loomis is like the music is in the back. It's so eerie, and he's talking in the dark to the sheriff, and he's describing what Michael Myers is. It's like that's just a setup. That's awesome. That's the setup that you need for the sweetness of what Halloween is. So
when he's like, he's got black eyes like a doll's eyes.
Yeah.
That's from Jaws.
Yeah. I was like,
which was a very similar speech.
But, yeah. So, Jaws. Check that one out, too. But, Halloween, it's Halloween time. You need to check out Halloween. That is one of my recommendations. So, that is all the movies for the 70s that we are going to cover. We are going to release another episode or another one for the 80s, and that will be on Monday. And so we will be back with the 80s, and we got a lot for the 80s. So bear with us. All right, take care.